Welcome along, and we continue our series looking at the armies in late antiquity. I haven't done a video in a while. Christmas is coming. Merry Christmas to you all. But I thought, okay, let's get cracking again. Let's have a look at some of these armies. So today we are looking at Lombard 493 AD with Avar 558 AD allies. This is quite an interesting army. You don't get much infantry. Let's zoom right in. These nice warband units. Now, I've had this discussion a few times. When you start playing in late antiquity, you don't often get a lot of infantry. I mean, 6 is all I've got, and you think, wow, what can you do with that? But you know, if you've come from classical, if you come even from High Middle Ages or some of the other periods that we play in the online play and in the league, in other sections the armies are bigger. In classical, often you've got about a minimum of 17, 16, 17 units of infantry and 21, 22 max infantry. So pretty large armies. High Middle Ages maybe a bit less than that, but you'd still have more than 6 infantry units. But in late antiquity, skirmishers, light horse archers, cavalry kind of rule. They really come cataphracts. It becomes more cavalry based, and a lot of armies don't have that much infantry. And when I look back, I've just started the series in late antiquity. I've done about 4 or 5 armies, but the Bosporan list that I covered, there was 11 infantry units I had in my build. Germanic horse tribes, there was only 6, which is the same, 6 warbands, same as this. Palmyran, there was 10. So a lot of armies have got around 10. The Romans, I looked at the 197 list, they had 20 infantry units. But the problem with the Romans is you get hardly any cavalry. And in that build, I only had 3 cav. So this kind of army is going to have a field day against the Romans, because you've got all these horse archers, you've got a ton of skirmishers. I've got 12 actually foot skirmishers, light horse archers, and then all of these lancers. So if the Romans have only got 3 cav, what you're going to do, it's going to be very difficult for such a infantry heavy army to beat this kind of army, which is mostly mounted and light skirmishers. So there's an advantage right there. Now, one of the reasons why I started looking at this list was when I had a look at the league table. It's season 12 in the digital league. Unfortunately, it's the last season. It's going to wrap up, but we'll probably get some other tournaments coming. And you know, I'm sure all of us would agree that Pete's done an absolutely fantastic job. 12 seasons, that's a long time. A hell of a lot of work. He just got more popular, lots of players. He's really had a hand in making this game so popular, because the multiplayer scene is really alive, and that really is mostly down to the success of the digital league. So thanks a lot to him. So Nosy Rat, I think, was the player when I had a look in Division A. So we had maybe it was 5 or 6 divisions, maybe 6 in late antiquity, and Nosy Rat took this army out, and he finished top of Division A. And Division A is very, very hard. A lot of great players in that division, and he had 8 wins and 1 loss. So I thought, well, okay, that deserves a look then. In actual fact, what I might try and do, I might even contact him and maybe a few players in that division and see if they want to make some comments about this build, because I've never played with this army. So please, you know, this is just my ideas, my comparisons. Please make some comments if you played with this army or played against Nosy Rat or other players who took this army out. Doesn't have to be with the Avar allies. make your comments and share your ideas. But anyway, from my point of view, this is quite a dangerous army because you get so many skirmishers. 12. We've got 6 light archers and 6 javelin men. Okay, in LA, armies do tend to have quite a lot of skirmishers. So, you know, the Bosporans, they had about the same, and they had about 10 skirmishers, foot skirmishers. Germanic horse tribes had about 15. Palmyran had not many at all. And the Roman lists don't tend to have, or Roman-inspired lists don't tend to have that many skirmishers. So then you've got an advantage. So there are armies that you don't have so many foot skirmishers, but you know, these are going to be really handy against cavalry, and just against a lot of infantry, because also in LA, a lot of infantry, like the warbands, are only protected. You don't get so much armor really. You know, the picked spearmen and units like that, warband, they're only protected, lightly protected, Scots foot and so on. So yeah, that's when it can be really handy to have so many skirmishers. And we've also got the cheap, half of them are the 24-point skirmishers, so that's got to be an advantage as well. The warbands, I had a little look. I did some tests because I thought, well, you know, what are they mainly facing? And I just, you know, random selection. I looked in Division A and B actually, and just what were some of the armies that were in Division A and Division B in LA this last season. And you had the Sassanid Persians, the Picts, the Bosporans, Jewish Revolt, Visigoth, those kind of armies. And so the units, like the mainline units of those armies, are going to be units like the Bedu foot. Now, Bedu foot against warbands, there are 110 down. In fact, most of the units I was looking at, there were 110 down against warband. Bedu foot, 110 down. The Sassanid foot, 110 down on impact. Picked spear, 110 down on impact. Imitation legionnaires, Muslim spear, they're all down 110 on impact, which is quite a large number. And in my tests, I don't know, it's roughly, I always say about 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chance of disruptions, which is, you know, pretty good. So they've got a good chance of disrupting units, and especially it seemed to me the Sassanid foot, they were doing terribly against these impact foot because they're only swordsmen, and so medium foot and swordsmen are going to do particularly bad against warband, and you get a lot of them in LA. So warbands can be really effective. And the other thing I would say about warbands is that they are large units. You've got the deep rank, they get that plus 10 on impact, but then also they got the combat strength modifier. So even against imitation legionnaires, even though they're only up 10 on impact, and then they're down 12 in melee because of the armor advantage of the imitation legionnaires, actually after the second or third round they've got a slight advantage even over that unit because of the combat strength modifier, which kicks in pretty quickly. So warbands actually in LA, they actually do better than in classical, I would say, because in classical you're up against Roman legionnaires, you're up against veteran spear, you're up against elephants, pikes. They don't do so well. But in LA, they do much better because the infantry is that much worse on average. So that's not bad, you know. You've got 6 warbands that are pretty decent units. You've got some nomad horse archers. It's a pity we can't get more, but we've got 2, and we've also got the expert armored horse archers. So, you know, you've got 6 there. 4 really good ones, superior quality and armored, so they're going to do half decent in melee as well. If they can survive impact, they'll do okay. But it's mainly the bow and arrow that's going to do all the damage. And I also did some tests to see what it was like using these horse archers on infantry, and in my tests I had about 4 of these units surrounding one infantry unit, and it seemed that mostly after 4 rounds of fire there was a cohesion check on the infantry unit. So very quickly there was a cohesion check, and if the casualties were quite high, sometimes by the 3rd round of missile fire, or third unit really of firing away, there was a cohesion check. Especially on warbands, I found actually warbands seem to disrupt pretty quickly. But all the other units, it also, if the infantry unit is only a couple of squares away, on warbands the range is 14 to 44 casualties from one unit. On the picked spear it's 16 to 50, because this picked spear is only lightly protected units up to 50 casualties from one unit. And armored units like the mediocre legionnaires, it was 8 to 28 was the range from one unit. So you can really cause a lot of casualties. If you've got 3 or 4 of these horse archers surrounding an infantry unit and all 4 of them fire away, you're talking about 60, 70 casualties, 80. The warbands especially, they were really suffering. So that's pretty high. So these units are really quite effective in late antiquity. And then you've got the wonderful lancers. I think it's the same with the light lancers you find as well. The lancers are especially cost effective if they don't have armor. So the noble lancers only cost 48, protected, but they're superior quality, and that is great because quality generally is better than armor, because quality counts in impact and it counts in melee. Armor only counts in melee. So 48, they can really hold units up. So any kind of the armored foot, imitation legionnaires, mediocre legionnaires, Roman legionnaires, warbands even, I mean, you can lock them down. Superior warband 75, Roman legionnaires 78, warband standard is 58, and these are only costing 48. So you can really lock down infantry very easily. I think maybe this army is better to use for experienced players, perhaps, because I think if you've got a more balanced army, it's just easier for beginners and players starting out. With this kind of army, you've got to know how to use your horse archers. You've got to know what units to focus on with your skirmisher fire, and how to get your zone of control with your lancers. It's kind of like all of these different parts of the army have to work well together for you to get the win. With more, I don't know, Roman armies, you're just getting your legionnaires going, getting your quality foot into play, and there's not so much to think about. But with this kind of army, there's just so many sort of components, key components to it: the infantry, the horse archers, the lancers, the skirmishers. You need to make sure that they're working all in unison. And we've even got also these light horse archers. So actually we've got 10, isn't it? 10 horse archer units. These are the light, and they do great as well as the standard ones. So that is a nice size there, nice amount of horse archers. The win rate, when I looked at the win rate, it's actually the best so far. How many have I done? It's about done the Romans, Palmyran, German horse tribe, Bosporan. It's about the 5th army in this section, LA, and 57% win rate. So it's the best. The Bosporan was 56. So and the Germanic horse tribes were 47%, Palmyran was 39%, and the Roman 197 was 38%. So, as I always say, a lot of these percentages are fairly low, and that is because everyone is playing with these armies, good, bad, and indifferent. So, you've just got to also take the numbers with a little bit pinch of salt. But I do, in my opinion anyway, I've talked to a few players about this, you can often see some kind of pattern there. Some armies just seem that much stronger than others, and if you look at the win percentages, sometimes you could see that. And so it doesn't surprise me so much that this army is the one at the top so far in terms of win rate. At the back, we've got some armoured noble horse archers. So we've got a lot of horse, cavalry in general, but or lancers. I mean, we've got 8 lancer units. So you can go in with your horse archers. Maybe cavalry will charge them. They don't have a lot of choice if they're surrounded. And then if you back your horse archers up with noble lancers, that can be a killer combo. So yeah, this is a pretty decent army. Not a lot of choice, I suppose, because we're maxed out on infantry. Fairly close to being maxed out on archers. I think this is the kind of army that I would take out. You can take more noble lancers. Maybe you could take out some expert armored horse archers, add lancers perhaps, if you really wanted to. You could also take out some of the light horse archers and add, just take out a skirmisher and a light horse archer, and you could get, actually get a armored noble horse archer, so a lancer. So there is a little bit of flexibility because that's 64. So if you felt maybe, I don't know, cavalry heavy army, maybe you want another noble lancer armored version. So there's a little bit of flexibility, not so much, but in the army itself there's a lot of flexibility because there's different ways to play. You can use your foot skirmishers, you can hold back, bring the enemy onto you, or you could flank, maybe depending on the map. Use your cavalry, keep your warbands in the center perhaps. When you've got so many skirmishers and so many of the horse archers, probably quite often the enemy are just going to have to attack you. So it's I think different ways to play, and I would say probably tough to beat. If you're the Roman, how do you play against this army if you're the Romans with all your infantry units? Not going to be easy. Let's just the Bosporan army that I looked at. They had 7 cavalry. They had a fair bit of cavalry. Okay, so they got a fair bit of cavalry. And they had a fair bit of the horse archers as well. So maybe it's an army like that's got a fair chance of matching you with their cavalry. My rating, it's going to be a little bit difficult because I haven't really played with the army or seen it in action. I haven't played against it. Going by the win rate, going by the record in Division A, I like the combination. I'm going to go A-. I like the combination of so many foot skirmishers, warbands, and all the cav. I think that's a nice combination. Yes, I'd like a little bit more infantry or options. Yeah, all right, we've got 2 irregular foot, but it would be nice just to have some cheaper end infantry. Give us a little bit more flexibility. It'd be nice to have some more horse archers. But other than that, you've got everything you need, I'd say. A decent army. So about an A- from me. Okay, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Maybe you agree with my rating. Maybe you want to give it more. Maybe you want to give it less. Maybe there's something I've missed out. Maybe there's other allies you'd use. I think there were the Frankish allies and there was another one. But overall, I thought this was probably the best choice to take the Avar allies because of all the cav and the skirmishers. Okay, thanks a lot for watching and see you again soon.